Yeah, absolutely. So, generally speaking, I would say most brands would fall on a spectrum, which is on the one hand, you can be very, let's say, growth focused, and your focus is to, let's say, gross sales or volumes and new to brand customers. And on the other side, you can be very profitability focused, right? And what that means is you're going to have how much to focus on growing repeat orders and how much to focus on new to brand acquisition, right? Those are kind of, I guess, conceptually is like, well, what's the right ratio of new to brands to repeats or repeats to new to brands? If you're very profitability focused, the majority of your orders should come from repeats, right? I've seen businesses where 85% of all orders are just repeats. And on the one hand, they're super profitable, right? And they're not paying for most of those repeat orders because they're subscribe and saves, or you don't have to show ads to them, right? They're just kind of doing that. But then there's obviously a question too of where's future growth going to actually come from, right? And so you don't want to go too far over into repeats and all of that, because then there's a question of, well, yeah, what if something happens? Where's future growth coming from? On the other side, if you are in one of those categories that should have a lot of repeat orders, but you're too growth focused, meaning for every 10 customers you get, if every 10 customers that buy from you in a month, 9 of them are new to brand and only one's a repeat, that's a very leaky bucket, as we say, right? And that is not sustainable, because you're going to have to, you have to acquire so many customers all the time at a great expense, and hardly any of them are coming back effectively. So those are just like setting the goalposts, right? Of like, you're going to be somewhere in that sort of spectrum. So it really depends on each individual brand, how much emphasis you want to put on profitability versus growth. What is the right ratio of new to brands to repeats that you actually want from you buying from you in any given month, right? And it's a trajectory. I mean, the easy answer is to say, well, the best ones I've seen kind of do both, right? There's month-on-month growth of repeats. There's also month-on-month growth of new to brands. But that's I guess pretty rare. But also what I've seen is a really good strategy is, even within your own catalog, you can have different objectives, meaning the hero ASINs, let's just focus on profitability. Let's just get, as many repeat orders and subscribe and saves or whatever it may be. And maybe 70-80% of all the revenues coming from repeats for those hero ASINs. But for the sort of second tier ASINs and all the rest of them, let's go focus on new to brands for them and build them up, right? And so like that's kind of the way I would look at doing that. But fundamentally, if you are in that growth objective, the most powerful thing that a lifetime value allows you to do is to not break even on the first order, right? It gives you the numbers behind and the comfort that that if you want to pursue a strategy to say, I only want to break even on the second order, and that might take me 3 months, this is what it means. This is how much I can now pay to acquire a customer. And this is what it translates to in terms of a ROAS or an ACOS. So let's say, for instance, on the first order, your break-even ACOS is 30%, right? But after 3 months, that's now jumped to 50%, because some of your customers are coming back, right? And some of them are coming back within 3 months, and you're making a profit. That all of a sudden now, what do you do if your break-even ACOS has gone from 30 to 50%? Well, you've got so much more freedom to pursue all sorts of different things, right? You can obviously afford to pay much higher CPCs, right? You can compete for terms that probably would have been out of reach if you want to break even on the first order only. You can invest in higher up the funnel things like sponsor brand video or DSP or whatever it may be. You've just got so much more room to work with now that you are breaking even on the second order. And you've got all, as I said, you've got all the numbers behind that it checks out, and here are the targets. I regularly come across businesses that their break-even ACOS is over 100% at the 6-month mark, right? So their target ACOS is like 120%, because but they got to wait 6 months. Now the trade-off, of course, is if you're having to wait longer to break even, that obviously affects your bank balance, right? Your balance sheet, your cash balance, right? And exactly. So anyone who runs a business, that's cash is king and all of that sort of stuff. So it's very rare for us, at least, to recommend breaking even on like 6 months or 12 months or anything like that. It's always just start off at 3 months. chances are your competitors not doing this sort of analysis, and you're already having a big jump, right? 30 to 50% in terms of an ACOS. And you can do so much more with that, right? You've got all that freedom now in terms of your keyword strategy and the rest of it. So I think that's probably one of the biggest uses, let's say, of lifetime value and customer acquisition cost.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, what you are saying is, well, if I have X number of customers, this is how much they are worth to me. And then I'm going to spend so much of it in bringing so many on board. And then you can look at it and see where that's going to leave you. And then if it's not enough, you have to look at the situation.
Yeah.
And of course, some of those that you are able to bring back, that will increase the lifetime value at zero cost, because there is no acquisition cost for them anymore. So it's a nice mix.
Yes.
And I guess, again, the answer is which one of these is right? Well, it depends on where you are in your journey as a company. Yeah. If you are at the beginning, you are acquiring. If you are like somewhat mature, you really ought to be retaining and increasing the value. So
yeah, the most successful and biggest businesses are going to have really good customer loyalty, right? I mean, that's not a particularly surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, right? The biggest brands are the ones with the most loyal customers. I mean, if you think of, I don't know, what's my lifetime value with like Apple or something? I mean, it's I hate to actually think of what that number would be, right? So yeah, I mean, that's how you build success, really big and successful businesses. It's, as I said right at the top of the call, if it's about brand building, which we think it is, then one of your most valuable assets are your loyal customers, and that's measured by repeat orders, really. So yeah, I mean, you know, the whole Amazon world is, and this is, I blame Amazon for this, right? They don't give you the data, but they're all focused on like what happens on the first order, right? And that's just not reflective of the business if you're in one of these categories. This just isn't, right? It's stuff that people buy again. Amazon's failed these sellers,
wait
right?
A minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Amazon is not playing that game. Amazon is playing the game of bringing that customer back to Amazon.
So Amazon's maximizing Amazon's lifetime value,
exactly.
Right?
I mean, think about Amazon's
absolutely
lifetime customer value.
100%. So Amazon for sure is all about maximizing their LTV, right? Like as Rail, how many times they couldn't care really which brands I buy from, as long as I'm coming back and buying again and maximizing that LTV. So yes, it's a completely different like optimization problem around their LTV and not the individual seller's LTV.
Well, in fact, the founder of Zappos, you're familiar with the story. That he's another case study that completely made the case. In fact, I saw him.
Yes, he was super aggressive with that stuff. I remember.
Well, I saw him at an event. You know, this guy was a real spiritual kind of guy, where he was completely committed to what he believed in, and you could tell the kind of emotional scars that he received in defending against investors. And sure enough, of course, it paid off. So, well, just as I expected, it's a delicious conversation which can go on forever between you and me. But we're going to have to wrap up the business conversation.